Welcome to AI and Automation in Action, where we show business leaders how to turn AI from a buzzword into measurable operational leverage. If you're serious about operational efficiency and responsible AI adoption, you're in the right place.
Hey guys, and welcome back to AI and Automation in Action, where we dive into real-world use cases of AI and automation to hopefully spark some ideas for you to do the same in your operations. So Hunter is out this week, so you're stuck with me, but I've got what I think is a fairly interesting automation that we have worked on over the last few weeks. So the challenge that we were running into, and one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this automation is it ties directly into some of the services that we provide at Innovative Automations. We have a program called our AI Executive Jumpstart Program, and it's basically a 30-day engineering engagement where we do a deep dive into what's going on inside of your organization in terms of workflows, what software do you have in place today, what AI capabilities are inherent to the softwares that you already have in place, what API access is available, and basically helping you get your arms wrapped around what is the best and highest use of AI and automation in your existing workflows. So as you can imagine, this is a fairly intensive engagement. And as we've been bringing more and more clients on leveraging this, what we're running into is, as we're onboarding new team members and adding team members, as we're growing, having consistency in the way that that is performed and the output of that has been a limiting factor for us, making sure that we have everything dialed in so that we can get faster with this in terms of delivery, but also making sure that every client's getting the exact same value out of this. So, we've got a formal process that we walk through to go and do the deep dive on those items. But as you can imagine, those are very time consuming because what we do is we go in and we look at all of the applications in place. We start with what software do you have in-house that's working today? So a complete audit of the environment. Now, we've got some tools to help with that audit at this point, so that has sped that process up. The next step that we do within that is that we go through each application that you have in place and we look for, are there AI capabilities in place today? And if so, what do they enable? And we make a list of all of those. The next thing that we look at is, are there API connections available in each of those softwares? And the idea is with an API, as you probably heard us talk about previously, it allows you to connect to other applications and share data back and forth. So we want to understand what APIs are available, what it gives you access to, and what are the capabilities there. And then finally, we wrap up that process of all the software that you're using, which of those integrate natively so that they can talk to each other with just a native connection, which of those could talk together through the APIs that are available, and what can we enable in terms of workflows and ultimately get to a point where we know here's what we should invest our time into when it comes to looking at AI and automation. So all of this process can take quite a bit of time. And one of the things we've been trying to figure out is how can we streamline this? So being an AI and automation company, we said, how can we leverage our own initiatives to streamline what we are doing? So we started working on this a week or two ago on how do we make sure that the discovery process itself is sped up. So we built an application, a custom application, and we leveraged AI in this. And we said, we want to build an application that can go out. First of all, we're going to start with an input form that basically says what applications are in use. So our discovery process now produces a report that we can either rekey in, or the next phase of this is going to take that import directly and analyze that. But the idea is we start with the list of software that's there. Then we built an agent that can go out and manually research from the organization's websites all of those capabilities that we identified. Now this happens in the background. Someone's not actually having to go do that. And then it returns all of that data into a database that we store that information. From there, we look at an AI functionality that says, okay, we've gotten all of this data. We've scraped it from their websites. So we know what APIs are there. We know what AI functionality is there. how can we connect all of these? So we leverage the AI component to basically say, build us this report so that we can relay to the client what's possible, what it will enable, and what does that look like in real world scenario. And I'm going to share with you what we've been able to come up with, because I think it's really cool the way that we've been able to add this functionality in. So what you're seeing is the output of what we've been able to generate from this automation that we built. So it's taken all of the data that we've gone out and scraped from their websites. We start with that front end form that asks the questions of what applications are in use, what's the URL that's associated with the software, so that we can go research that directly and fed that into a database that then we run an AI analysis on. And we said, here's what we want to get out of this. So what you're seeing is it's scoring each of the applications we fed to it based upon, is there a native integration available? Is there an API available? Is there an MCP or a model context protocol, that next generation of integration that allows an AI language model to query or analyze that? And is there AI functionality inherent to the software itself? And then finally, it scores it based upon how well it does all of those components. From there, we go through and also look at what can be integrated with each application. So what can QuickBooks be integrated with? And is that native, or do we require an API, or is there an option to use both? Then we go into how does that integration work and what does it enable you to do with those integrations? And the idea is that we want to break down, here's what we could accomplish if we connected those. Here's how difficult it would be to enable that, and gives everyone kind of the overview of the return on investment and time and frustration to get these connected and what it would bring to you in terms of solutions. So we do that on all the applications. And then the next component is we run into the native AI capabilities of each of those. What does it allow you to do? What is inherent to the application itself? And that's fed into the database. Next, we go into a full detail of the APIs, what endpoints are available to be connected via the API. We've talked about previously in other recordings that just because there is an API does not necessarily mean you can do whatever you want. It really comes down to what does the API open up in terms of the endpoints or the data points. And so we want to give a full assessment of that. Again, we factor back in those AI features and the MCP component of this. And the idea is that we want to go through each one of those applications, score those in those categories individually, and list the API endpoints and integrations native. So as you can see, this put together a ton of information that can be used. And then finally, we want to get to, well, if we had to pick our top applications that could give us an ROI quickly, what would that look like? And so it gives us, okay, if we were to look at quick wins, the impact versus the ease of implementing these, where do you start with first? And so it puts those on a chart for you so that you can see that, along with what the estimated annual value of that is. So now we're putting actual dollar figures to these so that as a business owner, business manager, you can look at this and say, okay, it's worthwhile to dive into this. And then finally, what we also want to do is say, what is the rest of the industry doing when it comes to AI and automation? So we try to pull what are the top 5 to 10 real world AI and automation use cases in your industry at your size and scale, and how are they getting benefit from that? So the idea is we've taken what was days worth of research that fed into a database, and someone had to compile manually, and a lot of times that order, that format could all be different, and now we've standardized that to where we've got a consistent deliverable result out of this. Now, having said that, one key component that I want to make sure everyone is aware of, there's a concept of human in the loop or human in the middle when it comes to AI functionality. We have all probably gotten some answers back from AI that we're saying, I'm not sure that that's right. AI today is about 80% accurate. So you want to make sure that you're verifying what you're leveraging when it comes to AI. So in this automation, we have a human in the loop verification process so that we go in and we look at what is it telling us, and does that make sense? Is it accurate? And if it's not, how do we go back and give it the right data that is accurate? With that human in the loop functionality, we've got the opportunity now that we can verify before we generate this report, and that is huge and extremely important to make sure that you've got accurate information. So hopefully this sparks some ideas for you. The AI and automation components that we used in this application, we used a web front end. We leveraged an AI layer that analyzed that information that was being fed to it. We leveraged an external tool that would go out and scrape from the websites and return data back to the database. And then we leveraged AI on top of that to do the analysis. And then finally, we leveraged a PDF generator. So now that we can take the data, put it into a consistent framework and format so that it's repeatable time after time. So hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully it sparks some ideas for you. If you have any questions at all, or just want to toss around some ideas about what you could do in your organization, let us know.
Thanks for tuning in to AI and Automation in Action. Join us next time as we showcase another real-world implementation and break down how to deploy AI responsibly and effectively. And if you want to brainstorm with our team, email us anytime at ideas@innovativeautomations.ai. Until next time.